Welcome to Doctors at Work. This podcast is part of my mission to help doctors create successful and meaningful careers. How do you get into leadership roles in medical education? In this episode, Komal Atta tells me that you need to be a good negotiator, open to change, and willing to experiment. We discuss how at the start of one's career it's good to have a broad understanding of all the different facets of medical education, but that with seniority it's probably better to focus on one area and become a real expert in that. We talk about publishing in medical education and we discuss the importance of networking. Welcome, Komal. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Komal Atta. I am currently working as the Director of Medical Education at University Medical and Dental College in the University of Faisalabad in Pakistan. And I also work with a lot of international organizations of medical education, and I coordinate with other people also. For example, I work with AMI. I've been contributing with them to some of their social media endeavors. I am a part of ASME. I am the ambassador for UNILEN, which is a medical education organization in Pakistan. And the latest thing that I'm very happy about is that I am the social media lead for the director social media for Medical Women's Association of Pakistan, which is a branch of the International Medical Women Association. So I'm very happy with that new endeavor that is going on.
Wow, sort of what an exciting career. I mean, what attracted you to medical education?
Well, initially, I did my MBBS and then I started off with our, you can say it's our intern year, that's our house job. So I was more into clinical at that time. And then after I got married, I decided that I should do something which will sort of balance my time with family. So I went into physiology. I started teaching in medical school. I started with physiology. I did my master's in physiology. And what intrigued me about medical education was that being in a country which has a huge population and a lot of medical schools, both private and public, and a huge sector now being coming out as doctors, I wanted to explore new ways of teaching and learning, not just, the run of the mill lecturing or something. So I wanted to experiment with new things.
Mhm.
So I stumbled upon a course in 2016. It was a short course on medical education. And I was really, really impressed by the different facets that you can use in clinical teaching and how you can guide doctors and, how there's more than one way to teach surgery, medicine. So from then on, I started delving more into medical education. I got involved in the department. And then I did my master's, and then here we are with
Mhm.
medical education as a full-time career now.
Yeah. I'm interested in you've got obviously got a number of really very senior leadership roles. So how did you go from that? You know, you were teaching, so you were a frontline teacher. So how did you go from being a frontline teacher to being in the senior leadership roles that you have now?
Um, I started off in physiology. I worked for quite a long time in physiology for about almost 5 6 years. I was completely doing physiology, but obviously because it's a teaching role, so I got involved with the medical education department as an adjunct faculty,
Mhm.
and I'm very grateful to my institution. They were very encouraging about it. The director of medical education, she was very encouraging. She still is,
Mhm.
and after some while, I joined the department full time. And after working with a few different projects and different people and going through different experiments, it was finally decided that I would be leading the department.
Oh.
So it took a long journey of doing different small projects in medical education, working with different people, collaborating with different people, helping out people. But Alhamdulillah, I've been lucky that people have been very supportive and they've always opened their doors for me. So
Mhm. Mhm. I'm thinking of somebody out there because there'll be people listening who say, you know, wow, I'd love to do your job, or there might be, you know, frontline educators. So what I heard you say is that you know you were a frontline educator and then you did a number of projects and different roles. Can you tell me a bit more, you know, what kind of stuff did you do and how did you get those opportunities to do those kind of things?
okay, so for people who are just starting, I would really suggest that the first thing is that find yourself a mentor or somebody who's already in the subject or in the field that you want to be in.
Mhm.
So I started off with the course that I did. my mentor was Dr. Sumaira Badr, who's still working in medical education, and Dr. Tanzila Khalid, who was the director at that time. And they told me that, if you want to be in medical education, you have to understand what are the processes of teaching and learning, how you can improve your own skills in physiology, how you can make your own exam properly, how you can test things properly, what are the metrics of doing things. And so practice from your own work, you start from your own lessons, be creative in them, and then you move ahead. So I started employing new techniques of medical education into my own lectures or my own small groups. Then I started publishing those. So I think the first thing is that you have to start small, but try to put it out there for people. Then I got the opportunity to join AMI, which is the Association for Medical Education in Europe, which was, I think, one of the turning points. Because after I joined AMI, I met a lot of other people. I got in touch with Trevor Gibbs, who was the president at that time, and he was very kind to tell me all the different things. And from there, I think the biggest thing I learned and the biggest tip I could give to people is discuss your ideas with others. Try to do not be afraid of change. So, there's a lot of reluctance, particularly in medicine, about deviating from the norms that we've always had. So I think that's one of the things that, people need to experiment. They need to be flexible. And they don't need to be afraid of going into a field which a lot of people think is more theoretical. It's something that's, just a lot of talk, a lot of techniques, a lot of things. So I heard all of that also, that, why are you going into something which might not be the most practical of them? Why don't you just continue with physiology, or why don't you give an exam and go into medicine or surgery or, a main clinical skill? So you have to just keep on going through all that time and keep on working, keep on disseminating ideas, keep on discussing. I think social media also had a very huge role in this whole process, because I was able to meet a lot of different people from different parts of my country, from different parts of the world. And once you get to know that, other people are actually interested in interacting with you, they're interested in working with you. So more and more avenues open.
So I'm hearing there's something about knowing all the different aspects of medical education, the instructional design, the delivery,
Yeah.
the assessment, the evaluation, not just turning up and delivering a lesson, but being familiar with the whole package that is medical education. Yeah. And I love the idea of kind of experimenting and having a go, and publishing and networking.
Yeah. And then what you do is that, once you find, I think I'm still at a mid-career level. And I think for me now, I'm started getting more comfortable with few particular things. So once you find your niche, then you can just, focus on that.
Yeah.
And that's where, you start going ahead. For example, in the beginning, I was more, because I was working as a teacher, specifically a medical teacher.
Yeah.
So I was more focused on teaching and learning different techniques used in teaching and learning. But with time, I did my master's. My specification was the curriculum. So after that, now I've more or less, I would think my niche is curriculum development and social media usage in medical education.
Yeah.
So those are the ones I focus more on now.
Yeah.
And things have streamlined. So you have to start from a broader scope and then just find out what works for you.
Yeah.
And then go all in with that and find people who are like-minded.
Yeah. And if somebody is a clinical teacher, how do they get experience in curriculum design, in assessment? How do they go about that?
It works differently in different parts of the world. So in Pakistan, in our context, even if you are a clinical teacher, you can pursue your master's in medical education and your PhD in medical education.
Okay.
And you can keep on working in your own field, but you can get those skills and then try to for example, in surgery, you can try to transform your workplace based assessment. If you have trainees or junior doctors, you can try to work with them.
Yeah.
You can revamp or contribute to the curricula of your own institution. If you want to completely shift into medical education, that option is also there. But there are a lot of very influential people here who are basically from the clinical side, and their clinical work has really improved and changed a lot because of their backgrounds in medical education.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that idea that if you're upskilling yourself, if you're studying and doing courses, that's a great opportunity to just go to a strange professor who you never met and say, look, this is what I'm
Yeah,
doing. I need to know how can I get involved. And there's
yeah,
so much work normally, isn't it, at university? If somebody comes along and wants to do some work, you're normally welcome with open arms, aren't you?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then there's this point about, you know, if you're in a field, and obviously if you're a surgeon or if you're an in medical specialist and internist, you have the experience and the expertise already if you've been working in that field. So the degree or the upscaling will just hone all those skills.
Mhm,
And you'll have like names to things which you've already been doing.
mhm, mhm.
And you'll just be able to, improve them a bit or tweak them a bit. And
Yeah,
I think that makes all the difference.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, the the idea of experimenting, sort of there, maybe somebody who's a teacher, the idea of experimenting, what kind of a mindset do you need to have a go, to play with things, to do something different, to be open? How do you need to think in order to do the best in that field?
The first thing is that you have to be very flexible. You have to understand that you can't really, change everything in one day. You have to understand that you might not be able to experiment majorly or
Mhm,
to bring a huge shift. And you have to understand your context.
mhm,
So, for example, I can't, ask the whole surgery department to revamp their curriculum because, I have a new idea.
mhm.
So I have to go with the logistics. I have to go with the skills they have, the patient load they have, and then we have to start really small.
Yeah,
So it's always about starting small. So I started with my own lessons.
yeah,
Like obviously I can't, ask other people. So I started with my own lessons and saw that something was changing.
yeah,
And then I tried to convince other people to have a look at it. And then I also listened to them.
yeah,
So, I things failed with me also. So there were some things that failed really bad. So, that's where you learn as well. And then, you get input from others and you can tweak it, or so you have to be prepared. You have to be flexible. That it has to go slowly
yeah,
and it can go either way.
yeah,
And the it's very important to be humble and to actually respect opinions of others.
yeah,
So, because sometimes, just because you have a specialized degree in a subject, doesn't mean that people who are experienced in other facets of medicine, they might not be right. So, they might actually be better off, or they might have better ideas.
yeah.
So it's a lot. I would suggest just say that it's basically you have to be flexible and open to failure.
Yeah. Um, you said that you had some quite significant failures. What have you learned from failures?
What I've learned from failures is that they're very important. They give you a chance to reflect, and although it's upsetting, but they give you a chance to really see and think about what your staff or your students or your clinicians, what they really want, or what they are standing at, where you're standing at. So it helps you evaluate things better.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think that it's always deeper learning when you fail,
Yeah,
because with success, a lot of things just get ignored. I think, something just clicked. So you don't see the darker aspects or the aspects where somebody might be left out or something. So
yeah. Okay. And you talked about the importance of networking, because I think a lot of people, I think, really struggle with networking for whatever reason. So I'm interested in what's your take? Why is networking so difficult for some people, or why is it easy for other people? And what do people need to do to take advantage of networking?
I think networking is basically, uh, again, we're afraid of getting to hear no, or we're afraid if people will think that an idea is a stupid idea. So I think that's one of the biggest problems we have with networking. So I think that it's a very small risk. You just have to put yourself out there, and there will be people who will be naysayers or who might not like what you say, but there will be people who will give you positive
Mhm,
reinforcement as well as positive criticism.
mhm,
It's a chance that I think everyone should take, and especially in today's world, particularly post COVID, I think networking is very important.
mhm.
because we learned from each other, and we were all isolated and everything went online.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of major social media and online networking started, where we started learning from practices
Yeah.
of people in other parts of the world, and how we could take those practices and encourage them and help, and people really reached out and helped each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that helps. And then always, it takes a village always to make something successful. So you have to have a team. It's never one person. So networking is very important, face-to-face networking, social media networking. It's part of the journey. Especially, I think in medical education, where you're working with contexts and people and change management, leadership management, you need to have perspectives from different people.
Yeah. So we've got both that, the local thing, the team around you, the people that you work with, and making sure that you do stuff with them and network with them.
Exactly.
But then we've also got the kind of the much more distant stuff. And I'm really interested in this idea that, we're all afraid of rejection, aren't we? So, we don't, perhaps people don't put themselves out there because they worry they're going to get rejected. And, and that might happen. But maybe, the mindset is, well, okay, I might get rejected, or the mindset might be, I might not like what I hear, but that might still be useful to me. Yeah. Because
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've done, you were a clinical teacher, then you've done all of these things, and then then you're starting to climb the medical education leadership ladder. What kind of skills do you need to succeed as a leader in medical education?
I don't think right now I would not consider myself as a leader in medical education, but
okay, interesting.
I would consider myself still as someone who's, mid-career or struggling with medical education. But yeah, some skills that I think of the people that I admire, or skills that I think have worked in my career, are you have to be able to negotiate, and you have to be able to listen. So I think those are very important. Negotiating, networking, and listening.
Yeah.
Because, we tend to project our work.
Yeah.
We tend to give more advice, and we tend to, not listen that much to the other side. And then you have to have negotiation skills. Because when you're working with teams, when you have to, ask someone to change something that they've been doing for a good 15, 20 years. So it is give and take. You can't just, suddenly ask them to close everything and start with what you're saying. So it is definitely give and take. Every new innovation, everything that you plan or that you want to do, not just with your faculty, but even with your students, if you want to teach them in a new way, it has to be a middle ground. You have to understand their side also.
How do you negotiate?
With students or and with faculty, I think I like, for example, if I want them to start problem-based learning, or I want them to start workplace-based assessment in the hospital, if that is my wish, I would first of all request somebody who is experienced in that to actually come and, take over, give them some tips so that, there's a ground built. And then how I negotiate is that I give my idea or my point of view, but then I request them to explain to me or to tell me how it can work with them. Like, what are the things that they can do from it? What are the things that they will not be able to do from it? And then we tailor the whole thing or the whole experience accordingly. So that's how we can negotiate. Because if, I just tell them that, this is how you have to do a PBL, this is how it's done in Maastricht, this is how you have to do it. So, there's a lot of difference over there. There's a lot of contextual difference. There's cultural difference. There's logistic issues. There is training difference. We've been trained in a different way. So you have to hear the other person out, and then you have to build a middle ground and prepare your own contextual guidelines.
I hope you're enjoying the show. Please click subscribe so you'll be notified when new episodes become available. This podcast is part of my mission to help doctors create successful and meaningful careers. You can be part of that mission too by forwarding this show to one person who you think might benefit from listening. Thank you. Now on with the show. Yeah, I really like that, that compromise, but tailoring it to, you can't just take one idea into a different context and assume it's going to work exactly the same way, can you? You've got to make it tailored to the local context. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's important. Yeah.
yeah. What would you say are the most challenging aspects of your role?
I think it's the same thing. This is probably the most interesting and creative aspect, and it's also very challenging to understand that everything is not going to go the way it is in a book or
Mm,
the way you get a best practice from some other country or from uh, the Western nations where you get a lot of literature from. So, it's very different when you come into real time. At times, you want or you think that, oh, if we had programmatic assessment over here, or if
mm,
we had this program in this way, that would have been perfect. But then realizing or coming to terms with the fact that it might not be that way,
mm,
so you have to make your own footing, your own ground. And the other thing that is very challenging is when you are really excited about something new and you try it out and then it fails. So so for initially it's very
mm.
disturbing, but then you learn from it and you move on. But it is a challenge,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Um,
faculty resistance is a challenge. Yeah,
yeah,
everybody will not like what you're saying, and a lot of people think that the Department of Medical Education, they just basically interfere with everybody else.
yeah,
So getting that acceptance or trying to make the faculty gel together or understand what your perspective, sometimes that is a challenge. Yeah.
yeah. You mentioned that you did some experimenting with your lessons, and then you published that. What are your tips for getting a medical education project published?
Okay, I think that do something which is unique to your context. Something that is a new innovation in your way. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use contexts that are present, for example, problem-based learning, for example, gamification, social media use, but tweak them according to your context. Be very honest about it. Don't magnify the good and don't, reduce the bad. And then collaborate. I think collaborative work is probably the biggest way forward to publishing in medical education.
Okay.
Because when you have people collaborating, when we have more perspectives, it gives a wider experience. It gives journals more opportunity to publish, and it gives them, more space. And then always have your own opinion or your own results made genuinely regarding your own context, your own practice present. So the more true you stay to the terms and the subject, I think the more easier it is to get published.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily about doing something groundbreaking and revolutionary. It's about looking at your context and your
Yeah,
problem, and
yeah.
how you can advance that, and how you can share your experiences to help other people in their context. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because for example, I've published about using social media for teaching and learning by Slack, which is an app that you can use. I worked with a team from Britain. They were really, really wonderful. And I think it was a simple project, but it resonated with a lot of people. So simple things are practical things which can get translated. If I develop a new AI app or a tool, it might get published because it's something that is, very attractive. But then how practical is that? And how will it resonate with people?
Yeah.
So most journals now, they're very practical. They want to see things which can be replicated, which can resonate with people and which are, useful.
Yeah. So that kind of, on the ground frontline project, this is a
Yeah.
problem that I need to solve.
Yeah.
That's interesting because everybody else probably has a very similar problem. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And how
And
do you, how do you evaluate, sort of say you've done a project, how did you evaluate success?
well, there are markers, you can always have the student feedback, then there's feedback from the faculty.
Mhm.
So, they're the two main sources, and other stakeholders who are involved. If you're working in the clinical side, you have patient feedback, you have administration feedback. So feedback is very important. And then it's your own assessment also works. If you can see a change, you see people turning out happier, or you see patients more satisfied, faculty more satisfied. So I think all of that together, it translates into a successful project.
Okay. And you've mentioned that you've got a number of new roles sort of with the social media. So I mean, how did you get those roles?
I think a lot of credit for that again goes to Amy, because I always thought that I'm good with the written word. So I like to express my feelings. Like to write.
Mhm.
But being a doctor, you don't get that sort of time that you can actually sit and start writing. So I would put things out on my Twitter, on my Facebook, small thoughts. And then I realized that people have started picking up on those, and they've started liking those.
Mhm.
So I used that more professionally then. So I started off with using my Twitter only for things related to medical education.
Mhm.
So I put up tweets about other people's work, about my work, about what I thought was going on in different journals. And then with every Amy conference, I started tweeting about the conference. So those tweets would get really popular. And then from there, I got a lot of audience. I got encouragement from Amy. They said that, you should work with us in the social media cater. So things like that just took off. And then, it became more wider. So
So you kind of you found a superpower that you have and an interest, and you followed it, and
yeah,
next thing
yeah,
you know, you're the
yeah, you
social
can say, yeah,
media
it
secretary.
actually just, and then I started developing, I made Facebook groups with my students. And, we had this group, which was, we were teaching topics in class, and then we were discussing that on Facebook also. And then, on Twitter, and then we made different learning communities. So it just took off that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brilliant. What would you say are the best parts of being a medical educator?
I think the best parts are that you realize that at the end of the day, you're doing something which may not bring a very big change, but it will bring a small positive effect into the lives of your students and your faculty, which will ultimately bring betterment in patient care.
Mhm.
So I think that's very satisfactory that, it's baby steps, but they're going to ultimately help with how your patients are being dealt.
I like that. And maybe if I could bring us to a close, and perhaps if I could ask you to summarize what we talked about, what would be your top tips for doctors at work?
Yeah, so negotiate, be open to change, be humble, and then experiment as much as you can and find your niche and move forward with that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Matt. It was wonderful.